I'm Bill Russell, President of Lake Norman Chamber of Commerce, and we're very excited today to have a board member, Karen Bentley, who is also a former county commissioner for Mecklenburg County. She's going to be discussing leading and managing through crisis. So again, very excited to have Karen on board with this program. This week we have Small Business Week. As many people may know, Small Business Week had been originally designated by the Small Business Administration to be May 4th through the 11th. Unfortunately, with the pandemic, that's been kicked down the road a little bit. But we at the Chamber of Commerce, we're not celebrating small business as much as we're honoring small business. So throughout this week and next, we have a series of programs that we're going to be offering to our Chamber of Commerce members. We encourage you to go to our website at lakenormanchamber.org for all of our programs. You will see that at the end of this program, after we've had some discussion on Karen's presentation, we will actually look at the website and some upcoming programs. But Karen, I want to go ahead and turn the program over to you, and thank you again for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation, and thank you all for joining. I think we're all getting somewhat used to this new way of seeing each other and doing business together, whether it's in elected official capacity or work or whatever it is. And so thanks for carving out some time today. And Bill, thanks for the opportunity to share what I hope will be 2 or 3 nuggets that maybe you can use as we navigate into the next phase. And certainly with almost half of American jobs existing in businesses with fewer than 500 employees, and those businesses those that employ less than 500 account for almost 44% of national GDP. You know, the significance of the impact of this pandemic cannot be understated to this audience. The impact to our local economy, our national economy, goes without saying, is significant. So, you know, Bill, kudos to you and the Lake Norman Chamber for the support and the recognition that you provide to this business community. It's much appreciated. So today I'd like to spend just a few minutes speaking with you, sharing some information about how we as business owners and community leaders can navigate through what we have been experienced, or just unprecedented times. I mean, this is nothing like any of us, I don't think, have ever tried to navigate through. So before we do that, I thought I would share a little bit about me. I don't want to assume that you all know about me in this way, so I wanted to take just a minute or two to give you a high-level overview of who I am, what I'm about, professionally, civically, and personally. Professionally, I've been in the healthcare space for over 30 years. The bulk of that was in executive sales with Merck, on the front lines with the customers and the people that I love being with. Transitioned out of that role, again, really, now that I think about it, you know, 2008 was a significant disruption, and large corporations were no different. And so I got caught up in a downsizing after all of those years, but blessing in disguise, I pivoted to a new phase of my healthcare work, and 8 years with Novant in various roles. And then ultimately transitioned into where I am now. 2 years ago, I decided to hang my own shingle and parlay that experience into work in consulting, where I focus really on two primary areas. One is doing forensic analysis work around reputation and stakeholder engagement. And then secondarily, or in parallel with that, I also have an executive coaching practice. So that business remains up and running. In tandem with that, I took a role not too long ago with Cardinal Innovations Healthcare, which is a managed care company, where I lead a team of about 55 community-facing folks as we work to move the needle on member outcomes and member engagement. So that's been a really neat role to kind of round out my experience in healthcare. Civically, as Bill mentioned earlier, I served 4 terms on the Board of County Commissioners representing Northern Mecklenburg County, where my heart rests and remains. It was great work that I was able to partner with so many folks up here to get done. Had the opportunity to sit on numerous boards and commissions. Currently, of course, obviously, I sit on the Lake Norman Chamber Board of Directors. I'm also serving as chair of the Charlotte Regional Visitors Authority as the Northern Towns representative, and that's been a really great experience to get the voice of the lake into larger work that's ongoing in the Charlotte region. And then also working alongside Jeff Tart in the Healthcare Collaborative. Personally, I've been married for over 30 years. We have 2 grown daughters. One is about to have a baby, another baby, probably in the next 3 or 4 days. So that's some really great news in the fog of all of this really unfortunate stuff going on. They chose very well. We love our sons-in-laws. And of course, you probably hear him, my 100-pound German Shepherd in the background. We all think we have the greatest dog in the world. I guess I'm no different. So you may hear Luca. So apologies as we go through this. So that's a little bit about me. Why don't we shift gears into the content? I was going to take a pause every now and then through this, but I think technologically, let's just run through this. Take notes, things you want to comment on, and Bill's driving the slides so he can back up when we need to at the end if there's a point that you want to drill down a little bit more on or comment on. I think, we have a really great group on today, and you'll see further on in my slides, none of us are meant to do this alone, particularly in times of crisis and struggle. And so that's really the value of us coming together today, is for me to share some information and hear your reaction and your response, and we can all learn from each other. So I hope we have that opportunity today. So the first slide in my main content here is some data that I recently found that really answers the question from a national level: how are business leaders feeling about the future? This is a monthly survey that is done in partnership, as you see, with Vistage and the Wall Street Journal. So very highly regarded brands, if you will. So I'm assured that the survey quality is very good. And these are 4 of the data points that I pulled out that I thought may be of interest for this discussion. Like I said, this survey is updated monthly. This particular data that we're looking at here already is dated, right? So this survey went out April 1st through 8th. So it's a month late. I'm sure, because there's been a lot of water under the bridge, so to speak, just in that month, these attitudes may have changed. So I just want to give you proper context to know the time frame of this survey. If you're interested in the link, I can shoot it to Bill and he can post it on the website if you'd like to follow the updates to this data. This data set is 860 respondents across the country, from businesses across all sectors, with annual revenues of $1 to $20 million. Dr. Richard Curtin from the University of Michigan is responsible for providing the data analysis. So let's go through these quickly and at a high level, and I think it'd be really interested to hear your feedback, your sentiments on this at the end, to see how we're tracking, if we're generally feeling the same way. So let's just start at the top. When asked about how their businesses would fare over the next 6 months, 38% of the respondents, CEOs, expect their businesses to be back to normal or better than before the virus struck, which is that 22%. Just shy of half of them anticipate that their businesses will be weakened but regaining momentum. And again, this is in the next 6 months or so. And then 14% expect that their businesses will be significantly weakened and fighting to rebuild. Again, this is 860 respondents across several sectors, small to medium-sized businesses. So there are just a couple more comments in this slide. You're okay to keep your slide there, Bill, where it is now. But there was a virtual consensus among this group. And this is kind of a duh comment. This is going to be so obvious, but of course, almost all of them agreed that had a general consensus about the collapse of the economy. Again, this was early April, so we hadn't seen updated unemployment numbers. We hadn't really seen ripple effects yet. So again, it will be interesting to see the updated data here to get a sense of what your colleagues are thinking about the sentiments reopening, state of their business, state of the economy, etc. So let's pivot a little bit and talk about, okay, so this is kind of the high level of how business owners are feeling across the country. And so how do you take all of that reality of the current business dynamic, and how do we lead ourselves as leaders, and how do we lead our teams in the context of some really bad news, right? And really crisis time. And it's really, I mean, it's always important to be a great leader, right? But it's even more now important to really be intentional about not only how we lead our teams, our customers, our vendors, but as importantly, if not more importantly, how do we lead ourselves as leaders through this time so that we really set ourselves up and tee ourselves up for success, as much success as possible in this post-COVID world. So the next slide, we'll talk a little bit about taking care of ourselves. And we have transitioned from what has been dubbed the Great Pause to what now has been dubbed the Great Wait. So we're waiting for this crisis to pass, for this pandemic to pass. We will on Friday in North Carolina enter into phase 1. So again, this is this great wait as we start to lift some of these restrictions that have been placed on local business and people. And so we're again waiting for that to happen, waiting to see the impact of that, and really understanding how we adjust and pivot emotionally, physically, from a business perspective. So I think the Great Wait is a very good moniker for where we find ourselves now. So, you know, I looked at this picture here with this flight attendant with her mask on, and the word mask has taken on a whole new meaning too. So in the context of this discussion, I'm talking about the oxygen mask, and what we're told with flight attendants when they're giving us the guidance is, you know, always put your oxygen mask on first. And of course, the reason for that is so that we can take care of those that are dependent on us, right? If we're not healthy physically and emotionally, it's very difficult for us to, at the highest level possible, care for those around us who are dependent on us, whether it's at home or in the workplace or in the community. So things such as, you know, this is going to seem really obvious and really straightforward, but it can't be overstated, the importance of eating right, exercising as much as you can, being intentional about your hobbies, as long as they're within guidelines, I guess. You know, prayer and meditation, you know, whatever you do to kind of come into yourself and understand how you're feeling about this, and really getting your energy back, getting enough sleep, really all of those basics that we know are really good and right to do for ourselves are amplified in a situation like this, so that we're strengthened and clear-headed about leading our teams and our businesses. And it really does lower stress, which has huge benefit physiologically, as it allows our frontal lobes and that part of our brain that is so critical in clear thinking and decision making and complex thinking can work properly. So I thought it was very appropriate to start here, because I really think the better we can take care of ourselves, the better we can take care of our businesses and our communities. So taking care of ourselves, and then also taking care, again, of the folks that we work with, that work for us, you know, and what does that look like? Of course, communication is cornerstone and central to that. And our people want to hear from us. They want to hear from us frequently. They really want us to be transparent with them. And they want us to be empathetic, to understand, to walk alongside. And those really, that's a three-legged stool of effective communication, I think, generally speaking. And again, just like everything, it's amplified now. And staying really tightly connected with those people that we interface with. And it's not just business, it's personal as well. the first bullet I have there is around vulnerability. We hear a lot about vulnerability these days, and especially as business owners and community leaders and business leaders, our ability to be appropriately vulnerable is really, really important. It builds trust. It lets folks know that we're human too, and there's a really interesting thing that happens when your team can see you as a real person, right? Like I said earlier, it does build that trust. Second bullet, I alluded to that. Your team will want to hear from you and to have assurance and reassurance that you have their best interests in mind. And for us, really what that means is slowing down, being available, being flexible as much as we can within the dynamic and confines or context of our business realities. Giving our teams leeway as much as possible to deal with the new challenges. I can tell you with my team of 50 people, there's been a broad array of how they've had to adapt and adjust. Many of them have small children at home or school-age children. So they're trying to balance the demands of work while also homeschooling, right? Or caring for an older parent that might be living with them. And as leaders, it's really important to, and I think most of them, now that we're 8 weeks into this, they've figured out what that balance is. But early on especially, it was very important to recognize that pull and that tug that those folks were really experiencing having to work from home. I've spent, the last 3 or 4 days making personal phone calls to everyone on my staff just to check in, and no agenda, just, hey, how you doing? Are you struggling? You feeling good? What's going on? And I think it's meant a lot to them that I would take the time to do that. So again, don't underestimate to stay intentionally connected with the people in your sphere of influence during this time. And that includes your customers as much as possible, and in whatever way you feel is appropriate. They'll want to know eventually what your plans are for moving through these next phases to getting back to full operating procedure mode. So going back up to this vulnerability piece, I've put a video in here that I found very inspirational. It is somewhat dated now, but this is the CEO of Marriott. He's bald because he's just coming off chemo treatments. When he shared with his executive team that he wanted to go out to his team members across the world and be really frank with them about what Marriott's experiencing, they were a little hesitant. Because he was bald, he didn't look necessarily 100% healthy, but he insisted. And it has been, it's gone viral. I don't know if you've seen it or not. Pardon me if you've already seen it. It's going to be worth seeing again if you haven't seen it. What I'd like you to take away from this is his willingness to be vulnerable and transparent with his team and just lay it out for them. The current situation, how they plan to navigate the near term. What I don't want you to take away is he does say in here that he's going to forego his salary for the rest of the year, and his ELT is cutting their pay in half. Don't take that as gospel because we all have our situations. But there's some really great nuggets in here, so I've asked Bill to play this for us. Like I said, it's just shy of 6 minutes, so I hope you enjoy it as much as I did, and when it's done, we'll come back.
Hello, Marriott Associates. I'm here to give you an update on the impact of coronavirus, or COVID-19, on our business and the steps we're taking to respond to it. Because of the profound impact COVID-19 is having on so many of us around the world, this is the most difficult video message we have ever pulled together. Our team was a bit concerned about using a video today because of my new bald look. Let me just say that my new look is exactly what was expected as a result of my medical treatments. I feel good, and my team and I are 100% focused on overcoming the common crisis we face. Now let's talk about that crisis, COVID-19. Let's start with the health challenge itself. The Across our company, the number of COVID-19 infected associates is low, and I'm grateful for this. I want to acknowledge the associates who are dealing with it as a patient, a parent, family member, or friend, and the hundreds of Marriott colleagues who are at this minute quarantined. Our well wishes and thoughts are with all of you. In terms of our business, COVID-19 is like nothing we've ever seen before. For a company that's 92 years old, that's borne witness to the Great Depression, World War II, and many other economic and global crises, that's saying something. But here are the facts. COVID-19 is having a more severe and sudden financial impact on our business than 9/11 and the 2009 financial crisis combined. The worst quarter we had in those earlier crises saw a roughly 25% decline in hotel revenues on average across the globe. In this case, which began in Greater China in January, we quickly saw a 90% decline in our business in China. In the 2 months since, we have seen COVID-19 extend to the rest of the world. In most markets, our business is already running 75% below normal levels. The principal challenge we face is obvious. Governments all around the world are taking the steps to contain COVID-19. The restrictions on travel, gatherings of people, and required social distancing is having an immediate impact by depressing demand for our hotels. As a result, we have hotels around the world that can't operate without incurring substantial economic losses and risking permanently their ability to reopen when this gets behind us. This has caused hundreds of hotels to close or start the process of closing until such time as demand begins to return. Given these circumstances, we've been forced to take proactive steps to respond to the crisis and are putting into place business contingency plans globally. While pieces of these continent contingency plans vary, given the differences in local laws and the geographies where we operate, certain elements are universal. We've worked to take controllable costs out of the business, like suspending all non-essential travel. We have paused all new hires, with the exception of a small number of mission-critical positions. We have stopped all hotel initiatives for 2020 and have gone dark on our brand marketing and advertising during this period. Both Mr. Marriott and I will not be taking any salary for the balance of 2020, and my executive team will be taking a 50% cut in pay. Above property around the world, we are moving to shortened work weeks. And in the US, we are also putting in place temporary leaves for at least the next 60 to 90 days that will impact most associates at our headquarters and above property locations. At the property level, contingency plans vary by geography and hotel occupancy rates, but for open hotels include closing food and beverage outlets, reducing staff, and closing floors of hotels. More details about these actions and what they mean will be shared through local HR teams. If there is any good news visible today, it is the signs of early recovery in Greater China. China appears to have succeeded in reducing the spread of COVID-19 through strong counteractions. China is now bringing manufacturing back online, and we are seeing some early signs of lodging demand begin to return. If this holds, it may bode well for the course of this epidemic in other parts of the world. In 2 weeks, I will mark my 8th anniversary as CEO, a position I accepted on the heels of 2 legends in hospitality. As a leader, I've experienced so many wonderful highs and a good number of challenging lows. I can tell you that I have never had a more difficult moment than this one. There is simply nothing worse than telling highly valued associates, people who are the very heart of this company, that their roles are being impacted by events completely outside of their control. I've never been more determined to see us through than I am at this moment. While it's impossible to know how long this crisis will last, I know we as a global community will come through the other side, and that when we do, our guests will be eager to travel this beautiful world again. When that great day comes, we will be there to welcome them with the warmth and care we are known for the world over. As I close, I encourage you to please take care of yourself, your friends and family, and the community around you. I wish you good health and a sense of optimism. Together, we can, and we will overcome this, and we'll thrive once again. Thank you, and be well.
Thanks, Bill. That was when I first heard that. It was, again, that was very early on, but it really moved me and was a catalyst for me understanding how impactful it can be to be raw a little bit with your team appropriately, right? How no matter how large or small your organization is, just that connection. What you also hear in that, over and above the vulnerability and the transparency is a clear vision for what might lie ahead for them, and also a real clear anchoring to what they're about at Marriott. And as we move into this next section, that's really where I'd like to transition is, now that we've kind of re-anchored ourselves in the caring for ourselves and the caring for our teams, what do we need to be thinking about as we care for our businesses and think about moving into the next 6, 9, 12 months? And the first topic I'd like to talk about a little bit is this concept of creating clarity. Some of you may be familiar with Patrick Lencioni. He wrote a wildly popular book called The 5 Dysfunctions of the Team, and I think that's really what put him on the map. He has another book out related to the health of organizations, and it's called The Advantage. And in that book, he talks about, among other things, creating clarity, one of the 4 critical factors in building a healthy organization. And within that context of creating clarity, he says that he asks his organization and those that he consults with to ask these questions, 6 questions, when talking about creating clarity. And there's, like I said, 6 questions. The first 3 questions, in his view, and I would agree, don't change whether you're in crisis or in normal operating mode. The next 3 questions, 4 through 6, do change, and we'll talk through that a little bit. So the first question is and you can stay on that previous slide, Bill. The first question is, why do we exist? And this is the mission statement of the organization. And this really is what keeps us and our teams anchored. And that doesn't change regardless of crisis or not. The second question is, how do we behave? And questions like, what are the limits of our behaviors? What are we intolerant of? These questions set the boundaries for this question. And then the third question is, what do we do? And this isn't about what we make or what we sell. This is really about what benefit do our customers and our communities derive by the things we make or sell or the services that we provide. That's the answer to that. What do we do? So these first 3 are really your classic mission, vision, and values, right? What are we about? Why do we do it? And how do we do it? The next set of questions are flexible based on crisis or not. So the next question is, how will we succeed? That's your strategy. That's your blueprint for how you operate. And again, that's going to flex and change in times of crisis. And then the 5th question is, what is the single most important thing our organization or business needs to accomplish in the next 6 to 9 months? And this will be your rallying cry for your team, for your organization, Bill, in your case, for your members. This will be the true north as you move forward in, like I said, in the next 6 to 9 months. And then finally, who must do what to make it happen? So, right, the roles and functions of your team, who do you assign to what to make that strategy come to life in the next 6 to 9 months? So the next slide, and we'll come back and revisit that clarity question more toward the end. And this is really what I'd love to have some dialogue about. I think we'll have some time at the end. The next slide really kind of dovetails, if you will, back into an earlier slide about taking care of yourself. This one is about maintaining a routine, and you as the leader in your business maintaining a rhythm and a pace of hard work. I don't know about you, but I've been busier than ever in the last 8 weeks. I saw a statistic a couple weeks ago. Of course, I'd have to verify this. I guess I took it as true because I'm feeling it. But they say productivity is up 40% since COVID. I know that's been my reality. So I, again, would have to verify that. But it really is important to maintain that rhythm and pace of hard work. Establishing that regular cadence to your day, again, goes back to this stress reduction concept and keeps your business moving forward. It's that forward momentum, that inertia and that routine that is so important and will really help move us through the next 6 to 9 months. And then lastly, so how do we prepare for re-entry? I call this New Normal 2.0. And the reason I say 2.0 is because back in 2008, I think this is the first time I heard this concept of new normal. I was on the county commission at the time, and that really became our banner is this is our new normal, right? And we're going to have to operate with different revenue projections, many different contingencies. I personally am not a fan of the phrase, but I think it describes what we all anticipate maybe to be different than what it was pre-COVID. So 4 points here. Again, I kind of keep hammering this, talk to your employees, but I guess it's my way of saying this is really important that we talk with our employees, particularly about how they're feeling about the guidelines changing. What do they think about that? Are they struggling? Are they eager to get back to work? Kind of where are they at? Doing the gut check and keep the dialogue open. We do this, because they're family in many cases, right? If they've worked for us for a long time, they're central to how we serve our communities and our customers. So we want to make sure that our teams are in good shape. And then going back to Lencioni's book, taking a relook at your strategy and really critically looking at your strategy in the context of your current business realities, the external environment, and like I said, your internal business realities. You know best the impact that this has had on your organization from a cash flow perspective, personnel perspective, etc. So really being intentional about looking at that strategy. And tied very closely to that, and in that same vein, is really getting laser focused on the near term, the next 6 to 9 months, and what you and your team need to and want to accomplish in the next 6 to 9 months. And that really will become your rallying cry for the organization. And then lastly, and I think that's why we're here today, and again, hats off to Bill and the Chamber. I think this is exactly the venue that you're hoping to provide, is an opportunity for us to lean on each other, our peers, our mentors, our coaches, if we have them, for support and guidance. Because even in good times, we're not meant to do this alone. And certainly in times of crisis, it even becomes more critical that we remain engaged, almost hyper engaged with those folks that know us and trust us, and that we know and trust to provide us good support and guidance. On the bottom of the slide, you'll see a link to the Chamber's website. Bill and the team have done a really great job of providing resources and guidance, in this case around kind of some nuts and bolts around re-entry into this post-COVID world. We were chatting prior to the start of the session today. There's some new materials coming, I think, very soon. Bill, if you want to jump in and share with the group that's on the call what the team's been working on and what they can expect in the form of resources.
Sure. A couple of other documents that we put onto the Chamber's website are documents under the Chamber News, where it actually discusses what retailers can be doing. And we have that information as well up there under Chamber News. And then hopefully to either tomorrow or on Friday, we're going to have a guide coming out of restarting LKN. And that will be everything that small businesses and retailers can use as a guide as they open up their business. We've been canvassing our chamber member cleaning companies today, cleaning companies, cleaning products. So as our retail businesses come back online, or our offices come back online, we have got to have a clean environment, not only for our employees, but for our customers and clients. And so we're going to make sure that we get those resources to our members. So again, the Chamber of Commerce is continuing to work very hard to give you the resources you need to operate and not only survive this pandemic, but hopefully actually thrive through the next coming months.
Excellent. Thank you, Bill. And I would just like to wrap up. That's the end of my slide deck. So really what we've thought through today is taking care of ourselves so that we can take care of those around us, communicating frequently, honestly, openly, authentically with those around us, whether they're employees, family members, team members, community folks, getting clarity on primarily our strategy, our mission, vision, and values. What are we about? And how do we move forward very intentionally in the next 6 to 9 months? Keeping that forward momentum going through daily routine and hard work. And then again, keeping those lines of communication open with your entire sphere, your customers, your employees, and your community. And then of course, as important as all of this is really leaning on each other. And like I said, we're not meant to do this alone. We all have folks that we know are in our circle of trust, those that we know that we can go to that will be helpful and honest and will really provide good guidance to us. So that will be very important as we navigate this next phase that we've called the Great Wait. So with that,
rather than having questions submitted, what I'm going to do is I'm going to unmute everybody. So if you have a question of Karen, please, and if you've got somebody with noise in the background, children, dogs, whatever, you may want to go ahead and mute yourself. But go ahead and feel free to ask a question of Karen. Any questions of Karen?
Karen, this is a fantastic presentation.
Well, that's good. I threw that in there just as a.
Okay, we muted him.
Oh, okay. No, it just helps to have certain things reinforced and being leaders to try to keep going forward and overcoming the objections and the obstacles. I do marketing for a chiropractor. He's been a wellness chiropractor. We have been fortunate to keep about 70% of our patients. However, the reentry and getting the people, the 30% back, is starting to become a huge challenge for us. And just trying to promote the care and the safety and the fact that, when they're ready, we're here for them. But, we also want to reach out and try to help them as much with the stress and anxiety they've been going on. I don't know if you have any certain specific points or how much, being in the healthcare field, you might have some other ideas of how to, create that, not necessarily trust, but just confidence that the safety level is being prepared with the sanitation and the cleanliness that's going on, and get them back to, continuing their wellness care.
Right. Yeah, I think, that's a great question. What I can share with you, we've done, and I don't know how you would do this with that customer base, if you're able to identify who they are. But if there's a way to somehow reach out and help understand through their lens what would make them feel safe coming back. I know with our teams in my current organization, we have put together a task force, and we've reached out to every corner of the organization to ask that very question about, how are you feeling about coming back? What would make you feel good about coming back? What do you need from us as an organization so that you do feel safe coming back to work. And much of my team is community facing. So, and they're with some vulnerable populations, behavioral health, intellectual, developmental disabilities. So, there's some interesting nuances there. So I think all of that to say, if you have a way to get a sense of what would make that 30% feel comfortable coming back, and then of course seeing how you can adapt and adjust internally in the business to help accommodate that. If it's staggered hours, if it's half capacity on some days, maybe that's an option.
Right.
Of course, all the PPE and sanitation, that kind of goes without saying.
Right. Right.
So does anyone else on the call have any suggestions on that question? How do we reach that audience who may be really hesitant to come back?
I know Bill had a survey that I saw on the site, which was very helpful, and wanted to kind of customize that even as a touch point to text maybe or send to people that maybe we have all ages. So, some people text, some email, some would prefer the human touch. And I was thinking maybe of doing also a survey of some kind as people do start to call in, because we did implement waiting in cars, and we did implement giving them masks and, covering the thing when they check in so they don't have to touch the keypad. But,
right.
Just trying to go above and beyond to figure out, what else can we do to make them feel really comfortable.
Right. Yeah, it sounds like you're on the great path. I think the survey is a great idea. Okay. And as folks call in, if there's some scripting that you can provide the folks that are answering the phone to maybe ask 2 or 3 questions that help you all understand those nuggets that might help folks feel comfortable coming back.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions of Karen? No other questions? Well, Karen, I thank you for putting this program on and the time that you spent with us today.
Glad to be here. Thanks for the invite, and thank you all for carving out some time to join us.
I appreciate it.
Again, as I mentioned, this is going to be 2 weeks of activities. We've got a virtual business after hours tomorrow. At first, I wondered how valuable networking would be if you're virtual. But last week we put this together and we had a really great discussion from area businesses. So the participation was there. I appreciate that. Friday, we're going to have a presentation on Zoom. Many of you are joining via Zoom today. Many of you may not have actually used Zoom in your presentations. And I see a bunch of folks on there that I know that you're going to be putting presentations together virtually. So there's going to be the presentation on Zoom. Next week, we've got 3 nationally renowned speakers coming together for a program that we have with WSIC. You'll see more information about that, but it's Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, 7 to 9. And again, you're going to see information about that on the Chamber of Commerce website. We've got a program coming up, selling during this new norm. And Karen, like you said, I'm not very comfortable with the new norm concept, but it probably is applicable. And we're going to wrap up this the Honoring Small Business a week from now with a special Focus Friday where we have a representative from Novant Health and Atrium talking about the stress that's on the small business owner, on the manager, on the employees, on the corporate CEO, and on families. And I see Steve Gilbert out there and Mary Jane, and on students because there is stress out there. So again, we're going to have 2 weeks of programs. As Karen just alluded to, we've got a whole host of information on our website at LakeNormanChamberOfCommerce.org, LakeNormanChamber.org, and we're coming out probably tomorrow with a restart guide for all the businesses. I was on a conference call this morning with John Bradford and Mayor Annarella and Mayor Washington were both talking about how excited they were, along with Commissioner Pat Cotham, of business opening back up. And I said, there's no one more excited about business opening up than the president of the Chamber of Commerce. We've got a lot of businesses that have been saying we want to get back to business. We still have some that want to be cautious. We encourage everybody to be cautious. We're going to try to get our businesses the materials they need, particularly cleaning supplies, cleaning companies that help can get their offices clean. But we want to provide them the resources. Karen, thank you so much for doing this, and thank everybody for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you all.